Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. Today I'm going to be going over Swords and Deviltry by Fritz Lieber. This book here is actually the first 3 books of the series, but I couldn't find my paperback that was just Swords and Deviltry, so bear with me. And I always recommend hardbacks over paperbacks, just because they last longer, the pages are better, the covers are better, and you'll have the book around a lot longer. You know, the dust cover on this is fading a little, but, you know, it's got a nice, image of the 2 characters, Fafford and Grey Mouser, who are, in my opinion, some of my favorite, fictional characters. And as you recall, last week I reviewed Jack Vance's The Dying Earth, which, in my opinion, was one of the most classic examples of Dungeons and Dragons style magic users or wizards, and the school of Vancian magic that was adopted by Gygax and Arneson to allow wizards the ability to memorize spells, and you learn more spells as they go up in levels and stuff like that. Was the quintessential example of how Dungeons and Dragons magic works, or at least back in the old days, to then be translated for player characters. And so this week I decided I would go into thieves. I will eventually go into priests and fighters. Probably not the subclasses, because those are a little bit more iffy, who was the best, who was the greatest. And I don't want this to be just about who was the best or who was the greatest, but who was the most, more or less, classic example. I almost wanted to review Cuggles' saga from Jack Vance, but I gave Jack, one shot. Now it's off to Fritz Lieber's Day in the Sun, as it were. And these 2 characters were the world that they lived in. I believe it was called Nuon. They were the greatest swordsmen of their time, if not, the world's history. I'd have to reread the entire 6 or 7 book series to find the answers to that question. But while they were known as the best swordsmen, I doubt they could fare against certain other legendary fighters that I'll probably hit up next week or the week after. But they were the greatest thieves possibly in literature. Cuggle was an incredible story, but he was a jerk. These guys are actually heroes. They try to be the good guys. They've got a little bit of a Robin Hood spirit to them, which, of course, being one of my favorite stories, I love that theme to them. But watching YouTube, no, I took the bookmark out. Watching YouTube Dungeon Masters over the years, I keep coming across this issue where characters get too high and they can't handle it anymore as Dungeon Masters. There's no challenge. Their characters are too powerful. And here in the good old-fashioned Dungeon Master's Guide, let's just focus on Fafford here for a second. He was, according to this book, and this doesn't mean at the beginning of the stories, he was a 15th level fighter and a 13th level thief and a 5th or 6th level bard, which I disagree. He didn't really have that kind of magical ability as per the old Dungeons & Dragons bard. But the thief and the fighter levels, absolutely. Grey Mouser, on the other hand, was a higher level thief, lower level fighter, 15th level thief, 11th level fighter, and a 3rd level magician or wizard or magic user. The stats I don't necessarily agree with either. Having an 18 intelligence, he should have easily been a higher level magic user. Although magic isn't a huge part of these stories. Well, it's there in abundance. They rarely had magic items. They rarely cast spells. They rarely did magical deeds. It was more of the adversaries and dangers that they fought and went up against and had to overcome. And in certain times their mentors were strange, otherworldly, magic-using entities that you'll have to read the books and enjoy for yourself. But assuming that even if they were half these levels when the story starts, which I think would be fair, except for Grey Mouser's third level magic using ability never really extended much higher than that, at least for the most part that I'm familiar with, or I should say remember, because it's been a while since I originally read these books. But these two guys were the quintessential adventuring, wandering, not really murder hobos, but rogues and rapscallions that got caught up in things, or their greed and avarice for a treasure or two got the better of them, which is the way a good thief story should run. Rarely will you come across a thief character or rogue character that is super successful and lives in the lap of luxury the rest of their life and retires happily ever after. A good story always has its ups and downs, and this one right off the bat starts the series with some serious ups and some serious downs. I highly recommend this series if you're a dungeon master or a player, to get an idea of what you should expect from a good Dungeons and Dragons game, including a thief. If you're the player or if you're the dungeon master for said character, I'm really disappointed to hear so many dungeon masters peter out with the challenges they can put forth against their party, the intrigue and the adventure that should just flow naturally, being relatively seasoned dungeon master, even a beginning dungeon master. I could remember my friends playing characters would often exceed the levels that a lot of famous dungeon masters just refuse to play past. 10th level thief is when it just starts getting really, really fantastic for the player. Same with fighters and magic users. Whenever they can build their organization, their castle, their thieves guild, their wizard's tower, that's when it gets great. The characters having a home base, or someplace to call home, and people around them that they can trust and send forth on missions, and do the real movers and shakers, the people pulling the strings instead of having their strings pulled all the time. And there's something to be said for a good 10th or 12th or 15th level thief going in on a solo mission to steal some treasure from a highly fortified, highly trapped location that that they should be famous for doing on a regular basis, and just getting in, getting out, overcoming the tricks and the traps and the potential guards and monsters that are protecting said treasure. That's what good thieving adventures are about. Not going in and getting killed by the third trap, the end. Nobody wants to read that in a book. Nobody wants to play that. Nobody wants to be part of that except some really sadistic and dungeon masters of the old school mentality where it's your job to kill the characters. It's not your job to kill the characters. It's your job to entertain a group of friends or family and make them want to come back to the table. Excessive total party kills, that's why people burn out and stop playing or find other people to play with. A good game could last a lifetime. And I have friends who've been playing the same characters for decades, and they still come back and they still want to play, and they still love those same characters. And I will never, ever have a difficult time coming up with a challenge for a character that has literally, like these guys, Fafford and Grey Mouser, toward the end of their careers, are looking at about 30 levels each if you added them all up. I realize that's not exactly how it works, but even at 15th level, that's, for me, that's like first level. Honestly, I don't rush characters to that point. I don't Monty Hall them and just hand them over stuff. But I have literally started games where I've let characters create a 10th level character, and we'll start from there because of the campaign. Because I wanted them to have their own castle. I wanted them to have their own little army, or their own little thieves guild, or what have you. I've done many, many such campaigns where I start the characters out much higher, just because the beginnings could literally, a character could literally make it from 1st to 10th level in a few short years. And depending on what you roll for their starting age, You know, you could roll up two characters, and one could easily be 5 to 10 years older than the other, but they're both first level. And to me, you start earning experience points at a very early age in life, toward whatever your end goal is going to be in life. So characters should be the same way. They should be able to advance, become better. We all do, with obviously some exceptions. We all improve at whatever our goal is at life. In life, whatever we want to do, we get better. Not saying that we're all martial artists of 35th level by the time we're 21, but there are people out there that maybe 15th level at whatever their profession is by 21. So I see no reason to hold back, and these characters are the perfect example. There's really no proof as to what level they are or were at any point in these stories, but they could have easily been 20th level, by the end of the second book, let's say. So dungeon masters and players out there, reach for the stars. Don't tolerate artificial limitations. Encourage your dungeon master to maybe go back to some books and get some ideas. Maybe remember that they're there for the action and the adventure, but also the advancement, also progress, also the feeling of accomplishment. And that's not just living, to fight another day, but to get better, to strive for something better than where they started, and to be all that they could be, the best characters, so that they have those memories when they stop playing, or when they're not playing and they're at their humdrum job, and they can think on about their character, about the game, and look forward to the next session. With all that said, I hope you guys give this book a try. Hope you leave some comments and let me know what you thought of this book. Or if you've got a recommendation, I have the next couple of book reviews plotted out for the rest of the month and into the next month. But if there's something that you think I would enjoy, or the little guy would enjoy, we'll be glad to hear it. Until next time, which will be tomorrow when we're doing a craft video that is actually inspired by both these books. Something Grey Mouser and Fafford encountered, and obviously they dispatched with no difficulty. Well, maybe a little difficulty, but a craft inspired by Fafford and the Grey Mouser's adventures. I hope to see you guys then, and have a great night. Bye, everybody.